So just talking about the online constellations Aida has witnessed, taken part in, and her feedback and her observation, that reminds me of saying a few words about choosing a representative for a client or not. When and why would you do that, right? So there are two clear lines of inquiry, if you will. Considering that the client is normally, especially when they haven't constellated before, a lot, very much in their head, they have this picture of the issue that is forming emotion. And in his mind, her mind, their mind, they are wandering somewhere down the line. And now there is a constellation, and that might lead you completely somewhere else. And we, of course, follow somewhere else. We follow the morphogenetic field. Then the client cannot accurately represent themselves often. Yeah. However, if there is an independent representative who has nothing to do with the client, will show us immediately the position of the client in the family system. Yeah. And that's hard to get out the client. It's really hard. So I would recommend only to choose a client to represent themselves when they are very accustomed. Like each of you, I would ask, in fact, do you want to represent yourself? Because I know you have learned to connect with the morphogenetic field, you know, and read that accurately. But anybody else, I wouldn't. And why wouldn't you not choose a representative, yeah, which give yourself a very visual of the state of your soul? Like this is such a great opportunity, yeah, that I barely see a reason why a client would like to represent themselves, you know, other that they maybe want to manipulate the constellation unconsciously or subconsciously into a direction they might think they really want to look at, even if the morphic field doesn't want to. Yeah, that would be the only reason I can think of why they would insist to represent themselves. So be very careful with that. There is, of course, always an exception to the rule. That is an interrupted movement towards the mother. It's stronger if the client has an interrupted movement towards the mother or the father. It's stronger if the client does the movement themselves than the representative. And if the client doesn't want to do that, then of course this is this resistance towards the mother. This is the original trauma coming out. Then the representative can start, and you would then suggest the client to take over halfway or so. When you have seen in the representative of the client the state of the soul, how severe the interruption is, what is needed, what words are needed, what steps are needed to overcome this trauma. And once you know that, you have seen it in the representative and some movement has taken place, then you can ask the client, because it would be very helpful if they do the last steps and do the hugging and the heart opening exercise, if you will, as for themselves. That is stronger, I would say. Yeah, but if they don't want to, then they don't want to. You can finish off with it. But that is really the only case where I can think of where I would prefer the client to represent themselves. Other than that, do you remember, Saida, what was this long constellation about? What was it? Did you see the dynamic?
It was an interrupted movement towards the mother. And I think what's interesting about what you just said there is that maybe at the beginning, the client representative was doing the constellation and the facilitator brought the representative in. But I think based on what you said, the reason why I started to get confused is because the representative still stayed as the representative, but if they'd been moved out and then the client themselves was taking a, that I think it would have it would have ended much more quickly, because actually that part of it, I thought we were going to close, and then it ended up being 45 minutes.
So that's interesting, because an interrupted, was this through 7 generations, or what was so long? Because, an interrupted movement can be 15 minutes.
I think so it was she had the grandmother was abusive to the client's mother, and then the client had basically kind of shut off her relationship towards her own mother, and then she was struggling in her child. She felt her child didn't love her. And when it came to the time of doing the hugging, let's say, then actually what happened was the representative and the client said, do we hug each other? And that's what happened. And then there was a little bit more stuff that came out of it.
The representative of the client and the client hugged each other in the movement towards the mother. Where was the mother then?
So that was the thing. So the mother was present, but she wasn't really involved in that piece.
That's not a family constellation, I can tell you right here. This is kind of the psychodrama, feeling good. We can all interpret in there something, kind of workshop. That's a beautiful example how it is not to be facilitated. It's not the method of Bertelling, and I wouldn't call it a family constellation.
And I have to say, I was frustrated at the time, but the day after, I thought, I'm really pleased that I witnessed that, because I now have learned what isn't a family constellation.
And you've picked it right away. So good on you. Yeah. Great that you could clearly see that. I'm very proud that was so obvious for you after the first 3 modules and a few workshops you have attended. Very good. That's fantastic. Heba, how are you doing?
Good, alhamdulillah, thank you.
Very good. Very good. And Navjoti, how are you doing?
Good, very good.
Okay, that's good. All right. Any more feedback or anything to share, or anything you want to ask or talk about? Or shall we move on to our module 4, teaching content? Move on? Yeah? Okay. Good. All right. Let me share my slides with you. What's going on here? We're connecting. Here we go. All right. So, all right. So welcome to module 4 of our 5-part theory of the training. It is titled Going with the Spirit. That has, as you know, no grounds in the work of Bert Hellinger, because he has named the new family constellation Going with the Spirit, as opposed to the old family constellation Moving with the Soul. So that was the terms he was, of course in German, that was the terms he was using. And he in German, spirit is the same as spirit mind. You often find English translations to spirit mind. Yeah. So when we talk about spirit, we are not talking about the spirit or, a spirit. We are talking about spirit as a governing rule. You can also use it synonymously with consciousness, I would say. Yeah. Consciousness or higher self or something like that. And we also use this term in this module because we will actually look at the spiritual world in this module. We will look at spirits as well, by the way. We will look at possessive energies and everything that is, as you will see when I pull up the definition, in the unseen. Yeah, because we need to get used to work with that. Okay. And another, so I'm sharing, as always, as I always do, I'm sharing with you concepts. These are only concepts. There are many, many other concepts. So there is not there is not one fits all. Yeah, this is just a brilliant concept I found for myself, for my personal development, and for my work. Very, very helpful. And others I have been introduced to, I didn't find helpful. So I have picked and choose only these concepts from my spiritual teachers that I found helpful in my work. And that's what I want to convey to you. So this is not a system that you need to believe in at all. You can stay with your belief systems. It's completely not touched by it. It is like it's like your mind. You leave it at the door, and then you work in family constellation with these concepts, and then when you're done working, then you adopt your own belief system again. So that's not a contradiction in any way, shape, or form. If the information that I'm sharing are completely new to you, great. So why not? Why not listening and using it and trying how it works? I don't want you to believe anything. Everything that I'm teaching you is something you can actually experience. That's very important to me, because I don't want you to believe in anything I say. I just offer to you information that you can apply and then experience for yourself how it works. Yeah. So as I don't want you to believe in it, I also want you to not believe in it. Yeah. That's the same. So don't dismiss anything just because it seems to contradict what you believe in. It's that's a divine dichotomy. It can all exist at the same time in the same space, parallel, right? So in part 1, which is today, we are talking about spiritual and emotional healing and foreign energies. In part 2, we are mainly talking about traumas, birth energies, and the interrupted movement towards the mother in great detail this time. We have touched it many, many, many times, but now we are really looking into every aspect of it. And then in part 3, which would be in 2 days, we are looking at regressions and past lives. So what you can see here, that today we are going into the world of the unseen, and I will introduce to you several concepts. And then in part 2 and 3, we are looking at death, birth and death, basically. Part 2 is regarding how life forms and what it entails on all levels of existence. And then part 3 is how life forms are ceasing and everything it entails that you need for your work. Because as you know, we are working with past people because we're working with souls, and the souls are remaining, and we make it visible with the help of the morphogenetic field and our representatives. So let's jump into today's teaching content: spiritual and emotional healing and foreign energy. We will look at healing, and we will ask a very deep question: why? We will look at emotional healing, what that is. We will look at a chart from Dr. David Hawkins, the frequencies of emotions, and how we apply them in our work. We look at the spirit and at the process of birth and death. We look at planes of existence that I will introduce you to. We will also look at the spiritual colors, very important. We work with them a lot in our work. We will also go to spiritual healing, when we apply it, how we do that. And we will finally also find out what are attached spirits or possessive energies, and how can we help the client and every other being involved to find their own place, their home, if you will. So that's our program for today, and we have, of course, an exercise coming up. We will look into the difference of spiritual and emotional healing, and we will also ask the question, what is energy? That's important to understand the concept of energy, and what are emotions. We never talked about that really, as far as I remember, what quality emotions are and what are they made of. And in this context, we will look at each emotion and what frequency it has. We will actually ask the question, what is spirit? And in this context, we will look at spiritual worlds and the spiritual colors. So, big question, why healing? Do you think that it's an odd question? Let's discuss that. Why healing? Why do we want to heal ourselves and others? Thinking that we have learned healing is already starting when we accept what is. So why don't we just accept whatever burden we are carrying, whatever we are carrying fully? Why would we desire to change it? What we call healing then, of course. What do you think? Give me your thoughts.
It would not be comfortable to keep carrying the same burden if we can
To
let
be more
it go.
comfortable? Okay. To be more comfortable, yeah. Anything else?
To not pass it on, so it's
Uh-huh.
repeated.
Very good, Suman, yes. This discomfort, we don't want that for our children and grandchildren.
It would also improve our lives and the lives of people around us.
Improve, did you say?
Improve our lives.
Yeah. In which way improving?
I think that if someone, like, for example, he carries like a certain experience, it makes him like maybe sensitive to certain situations and reacting like maybe in exaggerated way, uncalculated, hurting himself, hurting others. So when they are healed from that experience, then they can be more objective and
Yes, objective.
be
To do
more responsive, not reactive to situations and people. So it improves for both, for the person and the people around him.
To be more active and not reactive would mean that they are more free, right? They have the freedom to choose what they think, what they feel, and what they do, right? That's a very good point. It is the path to freedom, healing. The healing process is not necessarily comfortable. If we think about discomfort, it might get worse. Yeah. But we know when we heal these aspects for ourselves and for others around us or the descendants, we know that we will go through it and become to the state of more freedom to choose our emotions, our thoughts, our actions, karma that is based on our emotions and thoughts. Yeah. And that is exactly what we're talking about today. So yes, in theory, we should accept what is and don't need to heal. Because through accepting what is, we would actually heal. Yeah. But then there is lots of ways to apply this acceptance and find that what then heals. And we will in the end gain the freedom to control our path. And when I say path, I mean our soul journey. And that's all we talk about this module, if you will. So we think, of course, we start from the thought everything and everyone is perfect as it is, right? That's where we start. Nothing needs changes. Everybody and everything is at the right place at the right time in your life, in the life of your parents, in the life of your children, in the life of your ex-partner, in the life of your ancestors. It is all perfection in the universe. It is perfection. That's the beginning of all healing steps. Is not to worry or be despaired or wanting to change something desperately, because it drags us deeper and deeper and deeper into the issue. When we are able to let it go and totally accept it is what it is, now it's like the universe opens up a shower of, I don't know what, of light, love rain or something like that. Yeah. And all of a sudden, healing can take place. And I will talk about that another time. This discomfort that we feel, we call trauma and pain. Yeah. trauma and pain. That is what we want to let go of for ourselves and for others. And that is why yes, we agree everything is perfect. Yes, we accept that we feel discomfort. And yes, we still want to improve. That's a really good point. This is no contradiction. That goes hand in hand. And I have actually in my personal life experience that I came to a point at one stage where I did not provide family constellations anymore because I thought everybody is on the right path anyhow. I cannot help anybody. Yeah. And I had to go through this phase, which was probably a year or so. I was going through this phase to find out why I want to heal myself and others on a deeper level. And I invite you all to follow that path as well for yourself in your own time, whenever it happens, and question that. We also want to heal to change the perspective. Because once we have let go of a trauma and a certain pain, all of a sudden the world looks like new. Because up to then, you could only see the world from this perspective of the hurt child. Yeah? Let's talk about the childhood trauma. You could only see the world from the eyes of a neglect child in the need of love. So you can only attract people who are the same, who will turn you down over and over again as you are programmed with your parents, for example. Yeah. And that is such a narrow world you are living in. So narrow. Yeah. But when healing takes place, the world's widening up. And you have a completely new perspective on life. And all of a sudden, there's like new realms opening almost, right? New possibilities. And that's the freedom that you gain. So yes, this is why we also want to heal, us and others. And there is so much more to discover. Once we can opening up the world, we are discovering aspects of life that we never knew it would exist. So from this perspective where we are now, we cannot see it. But there is this curiosity, there is this drive, this desire in everyone who wants to heal on a deep level to open that up. Like finding the key that goes in the lock and opens up this door, right? The key is always there, the door is always there, the behind the door is always there, right? It's just putting it together. So they can actually go open the door and see what it's behind. True healing in this means is only enabled on a spiritual level. Because what we are talking about, the traumas we are talking about, is not a physical trauma when somebody breaks a leg and that is painful, right? You have a cast, the leg heals, the pain is gone. But what is sticking is an emotional pain in your subconscious mind. So from now on, you will avoid, let's say you broke your leg while skiing, just to say something. From now on, every time you see somebody skiing, your subconscious goes into alert. Yeah. You don't go skiing anymore. You don't want your children to go skiing. You have an aversion against snow all of a sudden and maybe develop a skin allergy when you see ice and snow on the TV. That's how the trauma works on the emotional level, right? And of course, now maybe your world was that big. It's so small again, yeah, just because of that. So we want to heal the trauma that is emotional. And because the emotions cannot be healed with pills, as you know, or a cast, we can't, that's not possible. The emotion can only be healed from a level that is above emotion. And that is the level that we call here, for the sake of using terms, we all agree upon spiritual. Yeah? That's how we name it. We can say consciousness, we can say whatever other words we want. Yeah. but we use the word spiritual. That's where we heal it. You cannot heal an emotion and override it with another emotion. Yeah, that doesn't work. It's like positive thinking. We will talk about that. Never really works in a long shot. And this is why we are looking at spiritual healing in great detail in this module. And don't forget, creativity is life's purpose. We can only be creative when we are not concerned with pain, especially emotional pain. Question, every one of you, what do you do for expressing your creativity? Let's share that. I can share for myself, I'm a great knitter and weaver and spinner. I do all this handworks upon other things and designing stuff. What do you do, Sumin?
I like to journal and I like to cook.
Aha, wonderful cooking, of course. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's a great creative work. How do you feel when you journal or when you cook?
Open,
Open.
open, and just like everything is just flowing. There's no attention needed. It's just almost feels like you're just breathing. You're just doing, being.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you said something, there's nothing needed. So no lacatosis
Mm-hmm.
when you're in the creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
No
Just flow.
time. Yeah. Saida, what do you do for your creative outlet?
So I used to draw and paint and things. And I suppose at the moment I would go for a walk, but I'm sitting here thinking actually I'm not really doing anything to be creative, and so that's a learning for me.
Good. Because that is the place where there is no emotional trauma present. In this, when you are creative, you don't think or feel anything like that. It's like you're zoomed out. You're in the now. Time is not there. Space is not there. You don't know where you are. It doesn't matter, right? And that is living. That is true living, right? And if you love this moment where you feel this creativity, then healing is to feel this most of the time. This day. Heba, what are you doing for your creativity?
I don't really do much now because I'm always cramped up in time. But I also like knitting, but I'm not an expert that I would be designing. I was learning with a friend, but then she moved to Canada. And I still have the needles and everything, but it's still sitting in the cupboard.
Well,
But I
maybe
used to
time
like
to dust
writing
it.
also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should. Yeah, I should to dust it. Yeah, you're right. Maybe when you come to Dubai, you can show me some tricks.
Yeah. So it is really important that you prioritize this, right?
Yes.
Because you don't need to. I mean, we all have downtime, right? We all have downtimes. I mean, you cannot be 24/7 on alert and work, obviously, right? So there's sleeping, there's eating, and there's downtime somehow. And we often are tired. We go maybe out with friends or watch some the Netflix series or something, yeah, in our downtime. Now this downtime is it's beautiful. Just put aside and do whatever you like to do creatively. It won't interfere with your working hours. It won't interfere with your sleep time. Yeah, it would be exactly that. Instead of just thinking, oh, I'm so tired, thinking, oh, now I have time to do that. Yay, you know? So yeah, right. Thank you. And Navjoti, what do you do for creativity? I know with two little children, that's a big of a ask, but
Yeah, it's difficult, but also that, I mean, to be honest, even before the kids, I tried many, many things. I've learned many, many things. I'm interested in everything.
Mhm.
whether it's singing, playing an instrument, dancing, painting, drawing, clay. I've learned everything. I know how to do everything, but I do nothing. I
Maybe
just can't.
you are inspired. I know. Maybe you're inspired when your children are in kindy or somewhere, when you have a few bit more breathing time to definitely do that
Yeah,
again.
yeah. Even before I had the kids, I was not able to do it. It was it's not about time. Of course, now it's a good reason, but then it's not possible. But there's something about it. I fall out of it very quickly. I don't know.
Something is blocking your creativity. Is that what you say?
I don't know. I don't stay long enough to find out. It's
So
so if I can't.
creativity and Navjoti, creativity is not mastery. That's not the same.
No, I know, I know. I don't pursue it long enough to find out if I'm blocked or if I'm not interested or what. I cannot do it.
Mhm. Well, maybe if this bothers you enough, this is something you want to look at and it works. When it really becomes a problem in your life. So because creativity is life purpose, then you have to think to yourself, what is lasting? We know the body doesn't last. So why would we waste all our time in making our face looking younger than it is? You know? Or changing I don't know, whatever. You know, why would we actually spend too much concern and worry and time in that when we have all this beautiful time on earth to spend it on refining what will last? What would you think beyond the physical death? What would that be? What do you think? Well, we call it the soul, right? And of course, the spirit, anyhow, the consciousness. That's lasting, moves on. And why we know that? Well, you know that from the work in family constellation, because we are working with the soul movement of dead people. They are very real. They have very real emotions, right? They have very real memories and thoughts. So that is for us, no doubt, anyhow, that's no question. But what is creative here is your soul journey or everybody's soul journey, because everybody's on the same journey, but in different no, everybody is in the same, moves in the same direction. That's what I want to say, but in different ways. There are as many paths to the same goal, to the same, what you say, goal or target or something. As many paths as souls there are, right? No one is the same as the other, and that is creative. That's what life's creating. We call that individuality. And this individuality on the creative level, that is actually moving on with the soul. That is not bound to the body. So creativity is life's purpose on many, many levels, not only on the earthly level. That goes on and on and on and all around. You will see when we come there. Talk about emotional healing. So we want to heal that what lasts. That means the soul, not the body, right? Of course, pain comes from the body, right? We experience pain, so we want to heal that. But we cannot heal the body without the underlying emotion, the trauma that has caused the pain. The body is just responding. The body is just a tool, a means to make this visible. And that's why we are not concerned in our work. We are concerned about the body as it gives us hints where to look. Yes, but we are not trying to heal the body. Now we want to heal the underlying soul trauma, which is an emotional trauma. So we are putting into that which will last beyond death, so-called death, and that's the soul. And who is doing the work? Who is sending the soul on the journey? Who's making sure that the soul has certain experiences so it can heal? It's the spirit, it's the consciousness, it's all your higher self, always there to guide you, always there to give you the circumstances that you need to learn exactly that, right? So there is no bad life or good life. There is only life, creating an individual experience, right? And this is also how you look at yourself, how you look at yourself and at clients. No client, regardless how dreadful the life situation sounds or looks like the client is in, no life is better or lesser bad than the other. Be aware of that. That's a trap. Don't get sucked into that. Respect the life, even if it looks like it's not much worth, as much as you would respect any other life. The soul's journey. That's it. And now let's look into what energy is. Energy is an unseen force, right? And we know that from power, from electricity. It was always there. It's always there. It's everywhere. But it had to be discovered. Not the electricity had to be discovered, but how to make it visible. How to make electricity visible so you see a light bulb, going on, or a radio, or a TV, or whatnot. That was all possible, but nobody had the means to make it visible in our, in the last time we are counting. Same thing with everything else. Thought form is also just an energy. Yeah. You cannot see a thought. It's impossible. I was just recently discussing with my son, who is, he's studying physics and math, and he's very much on the scientific, science path. And I said to him, you cannot see his thoughts. And he said, yes, you can. You can see, ultrasound or whatnot, brain activities and stuff. And I said to him, yeah, you see that the brain is active when you think, but you can't see a thought. You can imagine where this discussion ended. Yeah, nowhere. But that's it. That's just, you don't see the thought. You see a brain activity. You don't know what comes first. You don't know why the brain is active and not. You don't know where the thought is coming from. And I would like to introduce you to the concept that you are not producing a thought. That was my a whole journey. I pondered on that probably 20 years long. Yeah, what thoughts are, and I looked from it from all aspects. And I spent a lot of time researching and pondering, and I really wanted to know, yeah, am I creating the thought or not? Because I was very proud of my thoughts, because I was a very successful lawyer, and people paid a lot of money for what I was thinking. So on my spiritual journey, the idea that I'm not creating my thoughts was dreadful. That was devastating. But in the end of my inquiry, I had to admit I wasn't creating not one thought. Because I found out that we are not creating thoughts. We are streaming a thought. We are streaming it like a radio does. The thoughts are somewhere out there. And all thoughts that have ever been thought of and that will ever be thought of are in something similar to a morphogenetic field. They are timeless. They are spaceless. Yeah. They are not in this realm of Earth. And we have these means, like antennas, to stream thoughts. Why are we picking certain thoughts and not the others? Is because we are conditioned. That's how it works. In the first 7 years of our life, we are conditioned in the environment we are living in. And then we are also conditioned or tuned into these thoughts that we can receive. And then, of course, we grow up. We are then also introduced by school and peer groups, and so it's widening and wide. So we can stream more and more and more thoughts, but we can still not stream all the thoughts. Imagine that. Imagine we wouldn't be able to have a clear thought. right? We cannot stream all the thoughts that have ever been thought and ever will be think of. We have to select. Why? To create our individual creative journey. So we are selecting the thoughts that we think, which is great news because it is enabling us as well to drop a thought and adopt a new one in an instant. Is that not fabulous? If we have a thought that is bothering us, a mind pattern, a mind activity that is bothering us, we can actually drop it and think something else instead. And there's where healing comes in as well. If we're healing the underlying traumas that are part of the conditioning that we have been exposed to, we are free to think in completely different directions. And that is also, just a quote comes to my mind that is, going back to Einstein, I believe that he was once interviewed, and he said something about thinking and that he had such a brilliant mind, and then he was responding, the moments of breakthrough were the moments of no thought. That's where it breaks through. If you think you are in your narrow channel, and you're just falling, it has good means. If you have something learned and you will follow, that's fine. But if you want to be creative, if you want to discover something new, you cannot rely on the thoughts that you always think. Yeah. So the capability to drop a thought and think something new is paramount in getting more freedom, more happiness, more creativity into the life of yourself and others. And if you're interested about the nature of thought, you know Eckhart Tolle? I might have mentioned him before. Brilliant, brilliant. What he's writing about the mind and thoughts is just brilliant. So if you would be interested in more, then go and binge his books. Energies are vibrating in different frequencies. So everything is energy, also Einstein, of course, everything is just frequency and information. And that's forming energy. So, and that has a certain frequency that can actually be measured. So we can't see the frequency, we cannot see a thought, we cannot see so many things. The majority, we cannot see an emotion, we cannot see electricity, we cannot see Wi-Fi, we cannot see any of this, we cannot see the internet. But we are working with it on a daily basis as if it would be the normal thing in the world. But when it comes to information from the morphogenetic field, then people said, how is that possible? You understand, this is ridiculous, yeah? So everything is on, practically nothing is what you can actually see, you just can see the result of it, yeah, the outcome of it. And these energies that we can't see, they have vibration that we can't see, but we can measure them, mainly in hertz, yeah, and that is what we call the frequency. And now when we measure emotions, we can measure their frequency, and now we can actually work with emotions in a way that we like to, although they are unseen. The home of the body, where you can see, or where you can make all these energies visible through the body, the home of the body is the earth, of course. Yeah, the body is composed through material from earth, minerals and elements and all of this, carbon, composed, and it will go back to the earth when it's decaying. And that goes for everybody, animal, human, plant, whatever, any kind of body. Even rocks are like this. Rocks over millions of years become sand, right? A different thing. And then you can press sand and have a diamond. So it's just a transformation of energy. Even if it takes billions and billions of years, doesn't matter. Transforming energy. And it stays on Earth, it cannot go anywhere. We have this enclosed realm that we call Earth, with this atmosphere that we call Earth, and everything in there stays there. It's completely balanced. It's a miracle in itself, if you think about it. If you just think about the water, the drop of water that you are now sweating has always existed, always, on Earth. And it will always exist. It will constantly change. It will become part of the ocean, part of the spring, part of a bottle of cola, part of a cloud. It can become everything, yeah? But it will not go away. And no drop of water will ever be added. Everything stays on Earth that has a physical appearance, a substance, if you will. And of course, thinking about water, just think of the stages that changes into, from frozen to liquid to gaseous to, it's fantastic, yeah? It changes all the time. And it's always the same amount of water in Earth. Okay, now leave the realm of Earth and look at emotions closer. First of all, what are emotions? Unseen forces. We cannot see an emotion. We can only see that somebody is angry in their facial expression, in the fist they are making. Yes, but that's not the emotion anger. That's just how it looks like when a human is angry. When a dog is angry, it looks completely different. Yeah. So you don't see the anger. You see only how the body is expressing it. And the emotion is created by a thought, either consciously or subconsciously. There is no emotion that has not an underlying thought. For example, if you are happy or neutral, everything is fine, and you think of yesterday when you had this battle with your partner, or the boss was unfair, and you just think of it, you'll be down in a second. You feel it. You be sad or angry or whatever emotion it is, yeah? You cannot stay neutral. Same as if you want to be happy. You can think of something that really makes you happy, that you're looking forward, and you're floating through the day. Yeah? As it's just a thought. It can bring you down in a minute, can uplift you in a minute. The problem is that we cannot control our thoughts, that they come and go weirdly, because we are, our antennas are in this directions and we're just streaming them. These are happy thoughts, these are sad thoughts, and they just come. And then we are reacting with emotion. Freedom is to be able to create emotions when we want it and let them go when we want it. Why? Just to enjoy them and not be slaves of our emotions, meaning slaves of our thoughts. Thoughts that we stream, because they are reflecting what we think is our personality. These unseen forces, these emotions, they are coming from the mind or created by the mind, are the source of illness and disease. That is the true cause of an illness and disease. That's what we want to find when we want to heal ourselves and others. Emotions can even be so strong that they can be separated from the body. And Eckhart Tolle called that a pain body. It's like an own entity. And we also see that what we call as possessive energies. They can stick to somebody. And if that happened involuntarily, we call it an attached energy. And if it happens deliberately, we call it a curse. That's what a curse. It's an emotion that has been created with the attempt to become a pain body that can actually put somebody else in pain. That's the curse. And we actually do sometimes have to deal in constellations with the curse. Emotions, each and every emotion has a different vibration that you can measure as a frequency, and we will look at each one in a moment. Emotions can be transferred from lifetime to lifetime or from person to person. So when you are sitting in a bus, in a public transportation, Have you ever picked up an emotion of somebody in there? Or anywhere else in a public space? Or the emotion of your child, or the emotion of your partner, or the emotion of your parent? Anybody? Have you ever picked up an emotion? And was it hard to decipher whether it's yours or theirs?
I have.
Yeah? Do you
Yeah.
remember when that was?
Yeah, it was actually a couple of days ago, Maya. I was at a place with a friend, and this feeling of like heaviness.
Mhm.
You just felt it just all right here. And I had to really ask myself, like, what am I feeling? And because I was having a hard time relating to it, but I felt it, and I was like, is this mine, or is someone else's in here?
Okay. And what was your answer to this question?
It was someone else's. Somebody was going through a very difficult time.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, and it made a lot more sense to me. And had I not started speaking to this person, I probably wouldn't have had that validation.
Mhm. Very
Yeah.
good. So you know
Yeah.
for yourself that emotions can be transferred from a person to another person.
Mhm.
And that's the truth. That's absolutely true. And we can use that in our work, of course. We don't need to, but we can pick up on an emotion of a client, of a representative. But we also need to learn how to understand that they are not ours, obviously, and that way they are not sticking around, right? Like empaths. Empaths are the ones who cannot help themselves. They cannot control it. Yeah. They are receptive to an emotion of somebody else, and it's taking them over. Mm. And remember, we don't want to work like this. So we need to control that. And something you can also experience for yourself is how an emotion can be transferred from one lifetime to the other. And that's what you see when you go through your past life. Or some actually use the method of Akashic record reading, or I heard about another one, quantum healing. So there are lots of methods that are looking at different lifetimes of somebody, where they can see that the emotion that they have now, for example, is repeated. And that is actually a concept that we work a lot with. Because remember that when we are saying we incarnating in our own family because we want a genetically close pool when we come back to Earth from module 3, or is it? Oh, that's probably tomorrow. Probably I mixed that up. You will see that, and then it is actually that you see in a family constellation somebody's past life as well, in an ancestor with the same emotion. And that is also a validation how emotions are transferred from lifetime to lifetime. And how is it? Because the soul is the emotional body. The soul is carrying all these emotions. The emotions are not made by the body. The emotions are not bodily bound. The emotions are bound to the soul. And therefore they move on. They are not dead just because the body dies. Saida, are you aware that your video is off? Is that the purpose? Just asking. Not that we lost you.
I'm so sorry. I had to move to a different room. So,
No,
but
that's
I'm here.
okay. Just wondering if everybody's okay. So, the home of the emotions is the so-called astral world. Have you ever heard the term? Yeah? You also hear the term when people talk about astral traveling. Maybe you have heard that? Yeah? That's not no other
Like
another
astral
expression.
projection?
Hey?
Like astral projection?
Oh, I don't know that. Sorry, I don't know that term.
Yeah, people, they call it like out of body experience.
Astral project, yeah, yep. So that is already hinting that you don't need the body for astral traveling. It's the soul who's traveling, and the soul is traveling to their home, because the home is the astral world. That's where the soul comes from. And we go there every night, basically, when we sleep. Because the soul, and we talk about all of this in this module, is drawn back home every night. Then there's something that we call the in-between world, which is also part of the astral world. We just have to treat that a bit differently in a family constellation session, in a spiritual healing session. We have to treat that a little bit differently. So this is why I mentioned that here. Let's look at this beautiful map from Dr. David Hawkins. Anybody have seen it before? It's often quoted. It's yeah, there are beautiful books from him, and it's a really, really, really valuable tool to work with. So David Hawkins was a very famous and highly achieved psychotherapist in LA, I think it was. And he had all the celebrities in his practice and so on. And then from one day of the other, he decided to leave and embark on his spiritual journey. And he retrieved to the mountains. It was like this, right? You have to read that up. It's a beautiful story. And he was pondering on all that emotions and everything he was dealing with on a daily basis in his job. And then he started to test persons with muscle testing about their emotion. And he measured the frequency with tools. I don't know exactly how he did. And then he spent years and years and years and years to create this chart, frequency of emotion, which is validated by hundreds of experiences, that every emotion or every of these 15 emotions or what he has here is always vibrating in this specific frequency. And why we need that is because we need to understand when we're working in family constellation, remember when we are looking for the trauma, we are looking for the guilt and the shame. Because that brings us right down to the lowest frequency of emotion. This is, on this frequency, life is not possible. Nobody can live on the frequency of 20 or 30. This is red. Apathy is already, the name gives you, is unlivable, and it's already 50. Yeah. So these are lower frequencies than apathy. And because nobody can live, they have only two choices. They commit suicide, or they adopt another emotion that is vibrating higher, that is camouflaging it. And that's what we see. We try to find guilt and shame because it appears as either grief, fear, desire, anger, or pride, or arrogancy, or whatnot. Yeah, that's how it appears. But in the family constellation, we know we have to dig deeper. Because when we have found the emotion of guilt and shame that is underlying in a representative, then we know we have a dynamic that needs healing. Now, mainly the victim-perpetrator dynamic, somewhere down the line in the ancestors. And also the emotion of guilt and shame is developed in children with a early childhood trauma. One of the most severe is the interrupted movement towards the mother. But they cannot live like this. So they become angry towards their mother, angry towards their partner, angry towards the world. That's normal. But we need to bring that down to where it originated. And I don't know whether you have ever felt really this in your own life, this really guilty or really ashamed. It is so hard to bear. And you can really experience for yourself that you cannot live on if you would experience this feeling all the time. If that would be what would be predominant in your life, you cannot around and feeling guilty all day long. Yeah, this is below apathy. You cannot get out of bed with this. So there's this mechanism of the subconscious to bring other negative emotions. up. One of the outcomes of the research of Dr. Hawkins was as well that the vast majority of people on Earth, he said something about more than 80%, is living 175 and lower on the scale. The vast majority of people. And from the remaining people, let's say 20% at the most, yeah, they are in between 200 and 300. That's it. Very few climb up out of the green and the blue into the acceptance. And this is where we come into play. Acceptance, you can also use synonymously for acknowledging what is, right? That's where healing starts. Below this, no healing possible. And that also something that Dr. Hawkins knows from his practice as a psychotherapist. So once on Earth, in a lifetime, somebody has achieved, let's say, willingness, the willing to change. That's here, 310. There is a willingness to change something. That's a huge step. There are not many, but the good news is you are only working with people that are there, because otherwise there wouldn't be at a family constellation. A few with a mental disease, therapy junkies or something would be there, but the vast majority are willing to change, willing to heal. Yeah. So they are already vibrating higher than, let's say, 99.5% of the world population. Wow, this makes our work fantastic, because we don't get that in our workplace normally, because we deal with the rest of the 80 or 90% all the time, right? This is why we love this work. So coming from willingness, the next step is acceptance. Acceptance is acknowledging what is. This is where we start to work with the client. They are willing, and now they need us. And I'm also not, when I say client, I also mean ourselves. We are our own clients, right? When we work with ourselves in our healing process. So now we are learning to accept what is. One harder than the other, but we are learning that. Whatever pain we have, whatever we desperately want to change in our lives, we learn to accept that this is what it is. And we learn to accept that this is what the soul wants us to be. There is something in there, something to learn, something to look at, something to be even happy about, that we have this opportunity, something creative. When we went through this stage, we come to reason. And that is 400. That's really high vibrating, right? Really high. And you see that on the colors. It's also compatible with the, here are the chakras, right? Chakras have the same colors. And you know, maybe you know that the heart, the middle chakra is the fourth chakra between the lower three, which we call animal nature, and the higher three, which we call spiritual nature. In the middle is the heart. And the heart is green. That's the green color, not red, not pink, it's green. And that's the same here. And why is it? Because the heart, remember, needs courage. It's a courage heart that leaves animal nature, where most of the population dwell and society wants you to be, and go into higher realms of living, of experiencing, of existing. And that is the colors that are blue and purple. Now we come to the next frequency, love, 500. In a scale from 0 to 1,000, it's only in the middle, if you will, but it's so high vibrating that not many people reach that. And when we talk about love, we're not talking about a romantic love. Attachment, that's attachment. That's somewhere below 175, desire mainly, yeah. 125, we're talking about unconditional love. Unconditional love. Nobody needs to earn it. We don't get anything back for it. It's just like the sun shines on everyone equal. That's our unconditional love. Shines on everybody equal, whoever comes along. But even this love, and that's what we need to reach the 500 when we are working in the family constellation as a facilitator. Because without unconditional love, we would be judgmental. And when we are judgmental, we cannot work with the family system because there would be one good and the other one would be bad. Yeah. And the field, the morphogenetic field, wouldn't open up. Because they can only work with on this, remember, flow of love. That's all they know, the flow of love. And that's the unconditional love. So higher, just a bit above of love, is joy. And that is this kind of joy. It's also often in spiritual terms called bliss. It's a happiness without reason. Have you ever experienced that? That you were happy without a reason. There was nobody making compliments. You didn't get a present. You didn't get a new job. You didn't get this. You didn't get a good news or something like that. Just happy for no reason. Did that ever happen to you? I wonder. Would you like to share?
I've had that happen in meditation.
That's it. Very good. In meditation. How does it feel? Can you tell us?
It just felt like this heart expansion, just like this vibrating, like I'm happy.
Yeah.
Like all is well. Yeah.
All is well.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's a very appropriate place to feel that in the meditation. Anybody else has something similar to share?
I think for me, sometimes it's when my kids do something that's just like completely unexpected and amazing, and I don't even know how to describe it other than just like there's a real sense of peace and thinking that it's just, I don't know, I just feel incredible gratitude and joy and so many of the different things that you're speaking about.
Wonderful. So isn't that beautiful that we have our children to teach us how to feel like this? Yeah. Yeah, it definitely happens with children, the innocent. When you're surrounded by, if you will, the innocent. Yeah. So that's where it is. And that doesn't mean when we talk about the scale, and I just give you that as an example, we can go up and down the scale all the time. Nobody is always in bliss, right? Just some very enlightened being that happen to reincarnate to this very rarely are like this. That's not the goal, no? And we can always get impatient and feel some anger or fear or grief. That's always there. It's always part of human nature. But what we want to achieve is to have a undercurrent, an underlying vibration of this higher emotion. Yeah. Let it be reasoning or love. Yeah. Or acceptance. Let it be acceptance. And then it is a very short way to joy. And you can zoom in and out much more easy, as if you would, the underlying current would be desire, let's say, for stuff, to achieve something, like ketosis. If that's the underlying current, then it's a long way to joy. It just happens very, very sparingly. But if your underlying current of emotion is acceptance or even reasoning, it's a very short way, and it will happen much more often. And this is also, this mark, 540, is also called the seat of spiritual healers and saints. And it's a hallmark for compassion. Now, compassion is a very specific I don't even know if we can say emotion, way of life. And this is why it is so important in most religion and in most spiritual scriptures. Compassion to all beings equally brings you inevitably to unconditional love and therefore to joy. Inevitably. No? Compassion is easier to deal with in an earthly manner than this very hard to grasp concept of unconditional love. Yeah. Compassion is just so much easier and closer to our human beingness to experience. And it is much easier because you don't need to be compassionate with your ugly neighbor or with your unjust boss or whoever you can think of. Yeah. You can start with animals. You can train to be compassionate to animals. Yeah. To worship the spider in your house. Not how much dirt she makes and maybe freaks you out, but how she catches the flies and how quiet she is, and you never see her doing, there's just an example, right? That is compassion to animals. Is so easy for us humans, it's much more easier than compassion to people. But we are not stopping there. Once we have mastered compassion to all animals, then it's much easier to find compassion towards your fellow beings, the fellow human. And that is when you achieve this high vibration of 500 as a base tone in your life, not as a rare occurrence, yeah? As a base tone. And you can be angry, and in 1 minute you won't stay it. In the next minute, you would laugh about it. That's the freedom to gain. Yeah. So this is not an achievement to be all the time in compassion, all the time in unconditional love. The goal is to focus on compassion and to get yourself out of the lower vibration as an underlying current. When we are healing, we always vibrate at 500 and above. Always. There is no other state where you can heal. And it most often happens involuntarily. When you are facilitating and you're not worried and concerned about what you're doing, but when it becomes something that you do because you are trained, you're experienced, you are relaxed, or it just happens in a practice workshop. I have seen that with some trainees out of grace, yeah? All of a sudden, this connection with the morphogenetic field is so strong, and you don't even know why you do things and where it leads you. And it's a brilliant constellation that has a great impact, a healing impact on the client. And that is when we start to love this work, because we want to be in this state all the time. It's the same state when you are truly creative, not when you're struggling with learning or achieving something, but when you're really in the moment of the creational process. Yeah, you are in the state of joy. Absolutely no doubt about that. Because the perception here is perfection in creation. It's not the outcome of what you create. It's the creation that is perfect. The state of being creative is perfection. And that's what you feel with this emotion of timeless and boundless and joy or bliss. This feeling. Now, interestingly, peace is another step over, right? So we often meditate on peace and that's good. There's no problem with that, but we are not in the state of joy where we then can achieve peace. Yeah. So let's just stay more with compassion. And then we learn how to be in unconditional love more often and to enjoy the bliss feeling and the feeling of peace more often. And then the next 700, 1000 are all the steps of enlightenment, called, they are all the pictures here in purple. different stages. These are already stages of higher consciousness where you will see later you barely see incarnates on Earth. So it's barely something that you are constantly achieving in an earthly experience. So for us, it's kind of the how do you Sprungbrett? How do you call this thing where you jump in the pool? So to jump start something, synonymous for that. Springboard? Something like that? Springboard or something?
Diving board?
A what?
Diving board? Is that what it's
Diving
called?
board, yeah, maybe diving board, yeah. So that's what is these states of consciousness or the frequency of emotion of 700, 800, 900. It lets you jump out of this world into other realms where you don't need to reincarnate and go through the so-called karmic cycle or the cycle of suffering anymore. So that's kind of where you get to jump and cross over. Right. Before I let that go, any questions? And then we move on. I'll just digest that for now. Okay. So let's talk before we go into our break briefly to who or what is the spirit. And of course, if you have questions, just write that down and we can discuss after the break anyhow. Again, there's an unseen force. Nobody knows how the spirit looks like. Nobody knows how consciousness looks like. And it's even hard to explain, even other than emotions that have a physical appearance or thoughts that can, translate it into speech, and then you can kind of see it. No, the spirit is even more difficult. Very hard to see that or see consciousness. It comes from Latin spirare, and that's the word for breathe or the breath. And in the 3rd century, it is also translated as the animating or vital principle in man and animal. It is basically that what breathes life into life. That's the spirit. And I think I know from Christianity, where I brought up in this tradition, they have this depicting of this God that is giving their breath to humans, to lifeless matter, to make them animate, to make them come alive, right? So that's what spirit is actually standing for. Yeah, it is the vital principle in us. Without spirit, there's no life. It gives us life. It's not the soul for the sake. It's often completely used randomly and interchangeably. For our work, we just want to be completely clear what's the soul and what's the spirit. Two different things. Yeah. So the soul is from Latin anima. And if you know C.G. Jung, I know Suman, you know him, maybe you too. He's, a very famous German psychotherapist, of course. And he has formed this anima and animus principles, and that is also translated from German into thoughts, emotions, and personality as one. That's the soul. And that's true because, thoughts come first, then the emotion, and that all forms a personality, which we can call an individuum, and that lives on in the soul. That's not dying with the body. It'll go on a journey, and you will see it all over again in other lifetimes and other life circumstances, but the same thoughts, emotions, and individuality. So we have the spirit that is animating principle of life, and then we have the soul that is gathering thoughts, emotions, and individuality or personality, if you will, and that is on a journey. While the spirit is the same, that doesn't transform throughout this karmic cycle. It is always there to animate the soul, give it new life in another life form, in another lifetime. Always there to make sure that it can experience whatever it wants to experience. This spirit has many, many names. I don't mind whatever you call it, higher self, consciousness, God, the essential principle, the source of all things, the life force, it's all the same, all referring to what we now use as the spirit or the spirit mind, as Bert Helling has used it, the spirit mind. The home of the spirit is the world of light. So I recap. We have the home of the body, that is earth. We have the home of the soul or the emotions, that is the astral world. We have the home of the spirit, which is the world of light. Now I introduce you to the concept of birth and death. I have a blog post and also podcast about life and death. If you haven't seen it yet or listened to it, I highly recommend you do that, because there where I inquire about the saying, the matter of life and death, and how misleading it is, because we cannot look at life and death as opposites, although it's always used as is. The opposites are birth and death. Life is always there. Life is always there. As long as we have spirit, life is there, always animating life. So birth and death are just stages of energy transforming, right? And we are composed of the three. It's of course simplified, right? This is a simplified concept. So we don't need any more for our work. This is why I don't want to make it more complicated than that. So let's say we are composed of three parts: the body, the thoughts and emotions, which are residing in the soul, and the spirit. The purpose of birth is to give the opportunity to become more loving and compassionate and to master egoistic tendencies and thoughts. Meaning, to master egoistic tendencies and thoughts, meaning we are transforming ourselves to receive other thoughts that are more what? Compassionate, and therefore raising the frequency of our emotions so the soul moves on to be eventually free to reincarnate in the world of suffering from 700 and above, right? And that's what we call the karmic cycle, or the wheel of life, or whatever word you have for that. This change to experience compassion and go into the higher states of vibration can only happen in a physical body. The soul within the astral world, meaning no bodies there, can think of everything, can create, but it cannot materialize anything. And without the materialization of an emotion or a thought, it cannot be experienced. This is why we have a body. We cannot experience pain without a body. It's impossible. We need to know how pain feels. With our five senses, we cannot experience any thought or any emotion. And that's the beauty of this plane of Earth, that we have created a resonating body that is actually capable of experience that what is otherwise just a concept in thought and emotion. And we can take this experience back with our soul and move up in the spiritual world. The death, however, is to shed the body, and it's the opportunity to shed the body and return to the spiritual and emotional home where you came from. And hopefully, in this time that you had this body, you have changed the frequency of your underlying emotion from a lower to a higher state. And even if it's just one step up in the ladder, because then you already come to another realm in the astral world. And that is how you learn new things. The earth is the world of experiences, of course, right? The astral world is the world of emotion. And the in-between world, something we talk about later, is the world of the attachments and addictions. It's sometimes also called the world of the undead. We see that in family constellation a lot, represented by people lying on the floor with their eyes open. They are most likely, in 90% or 95% of all cases, representing somebody, a soul who is stuck in the in-between world. And then, of course, we have the world of light where the innocents live together with the spirits, the children, advanced being, and animals, everyone who has not developed a thought pattern or an emotional body. Yeah. Okay, let's look at Earth, the world of experience and perception, because that's what we do here. We perceive with our senses, yeah? Only thoughts and only through a physical body is experience possible. Pain, sensation, even happiness is only possible to experience in a physical body. When Suman was just sharing her feeling of happiness was a heart opening and widening, you cannot experience that without a heart, right? So this is how we know, okay, we need the physical body to experience this. Yeah. Changes are slow to understand their impact fully. If change would be fast, if you would experience pain and happiness and everything in an instant, or if you would be able to stream all thoughts that ever have been thought in an instant, you don't understand the impact. You can just change it immediately. But here on Earth, we cannot change it. We have pain. We have it for our whole life, right? To experience the impact of this pain from all angles. And that's by design. Otherwise, we would not be able to learn anything out of it. We also learn on Earth that reality is a perception. It's just where we stand. We're looking at others. We are always looking from our individual point in our journey. There's no such thing as objectivity. It just does not exist. It's a completely theoretically born concept, or equality, or any of these words. It's not real. Reality is individual perception. Each person has a unique perception. You know that when you deal with witnesses, like I did as a lawyer. I was trained to interview witnesses, and you will never, and you are told that by your tutors, you never will get the same description of a certain accident or whatever from two people who were at the scene, which are exactly saying the same thing. Never. It's just not happening. Why? Because they're two different individuals with two different perspectives. So they will be completely convinced the man they have seen was wearing a black hat, and the other was saying, no, it was a blue cap. And they would both swear on it. Yeah. That's just how perception works. The goal is on the earthly plane to gain experience and to evolve, meaning rising in vibration, bringing the frequency of emotions higher. The astral plane is the world of emotion. And there's a saying, the emotion you become. It's not a random emotion, or it's not the last emotion that you die with that is determine which emotion you are calling home, your soul. It's the emotion you have become. If you are always angry, like no matter what you do, you're always angry, that's the emotion, and you are staying that when you leave your body, then that's the emotion you have become in this lifetime. If you manage from an anger that you have experienced in your youth and maybe in your young ages, through healing and work and willingness to get out there and maybe come to a state of grief, yeah, then that's the emotion you become. Even when you're angry and then the second you are dying, you're leaving your body, but the grief is the emotion you become. So you are higher up the scale and you end up in the astral plane where the emotion of grief is attracting you to. Yeah. Every emotion has a matching color. We will talk about that. We call that the spiritual color, which are actually probably the emotional colors more, but we call it the spiritual colors for some reason. Actually, interesting. I don't know why. The beings are together with similar emotional bodies in the astral plane. This is why we perceive it as our home, because everybody there is understanding us. There is no fight. There's no of this disagreements that we have on earth. Everybody loves everyone because they're all, in the same state of emotion. They understand each other. Yeah, they know each other. You know how much we are earning to have somebody who knows us and understands us, and we are failing in finding this one most of the time because it's pretty much impossible, because they are vibrating on another frequency. But if you would find somebody who is exactly vibrating on your frequency of emotion, then you would felt understood. Now imagine your soul is in a home, in a plane where this is all the time. This is how it feels. This is why we feel at home there, regardless what frequency we are at. In the astral plane, we learn, heal, and re-entering. That's called the karmic cycle in many traditions. And in the high astral world, we teach love, because we are in the high astral world when we are in the color purple. This vibration of the emotion, it's beyond compassion, it's beyond unconditional love, it's beyond peace, or it is in this area of unconditional love, peace, and joy. And that is when we start to teach in the astral world, where we are not only there to ponder on our own emotions, but we want to share our learning with others who need help. Mid-astral world is to work on karma. That's where normally people are. They come and go with their emotions. They create the same life circumstances to overcome, their reaction to it and make better decisions and decide this time new. And then they can learn and move on. And then we have the lower astral world. That is the escaping the dark world of selfishness, is also called. Yeah. So actions or the emotion that somebody became that was extremely selfish will attract them to what is the low astral world, where everybody is like this. I think in the Christianity you would call it hell. I think, there is this concept of heaven and hell. Of course, it's not hell, because you are together with others who are exactly the same, so you feel very much at home there, right? Not like in a hell. The goal in the astral plane is to learn about the choices you made on Earth and to make better choices in your next life. That's the goal, to be in the astral world. So, here we are, spiritual colors. Shall we not make a break maybe before we go there? Yeah, I think that would be about time. Take a screenshot with your phone or with your computer, because later in our exercise you would need to have that handy, the spiritual color chart. Let me see the time check. Yeah, oh yeah, we should do definitely the break now. Okay, I see you in 10 minutes. Stay awake. So this spiritual color chart I have put together from information that I have from Malcolm Southwood in my training with him. He is a British citizen who lived in Switzerland. He was a very highly sought after healer, about maybe 20 years older than I am. And he also had a completely different career. And he had, I don't want to go there, in one of his books, he will talk about that for sure, this weird experience where he had to unwillingly decide to change his career and become a healer, which is, of course, a very, not very mainstream way to live with the family, with kids to put food on the table. But it happened to him, and it was inevitably, and he was fantastic, and he was also very successful. So he was also introducing me to this concept of the spiritual worlds, and I have applied that in my own understanding and process of evolvement, as well as working with clients, and it has a fantastic it's a fantastic system to work with and to live with. So I can highly recommend that, to adopt that. So the colors are important when we work with emotions, especially when we want to release emotions, possessive energies, or even attached spirits. That's when we need it. It is also in family constellation of great importance, this colors, if you want to get a hint of somebody's emotion as a representative of the emotional status they are in. If they are unable to describe it, they often can see a color. And it is paramount to work with when you work like I do in one-on-one session with figurines that we will look at in module 5, and you will remember this chart then, because the figurines have different colors, and they are a fantastic tool for the facilitator to understand the representation in a figurine due to the color they are picked by the client, or by the morphogenetic field, I have to say, right? The client is also just in service here. So you can learn that in your own time. It's all self-explanatory. We don't need to go through all these colors, yeah? Just note that there is a shade of darker and a shade of lighter, so they have different meanings. And it's a lot of information. I probably don't know them all by heart. I have this chart always on my desktop. So when I work, I can always access it. You don't need to memorize it, but when you work with it, very often most of the colors you will have memorized anyhow. I want to point out a few that we work with all the time, or they are more tricky to work with. Let's say that. Sahida, say, you have a question?
Oops. Yeah, I was going to ask you what you mean by how you work with them.
Other than I have just said?
Maybe I missed it or I didn't understand.
We will work with them throughout this module 4 and module 5. So you
Okay,
will
so it will
see,
appear. Okay.
yeah, so you see how we work with them.
Yeah, thank you.
This is why I wanted you to take a screenshot so you have it handy. We are going through a few colors that are a little bit more misleading or so. So remember, the emotions are belonging to a color. When we are working with souls, the emotional body, yeah, they have a color. When we, which you will learn later on, send them to their home to make sure that they are detaching or gone, we have to find the corresponding color. That's their home in astral world. We cannot send them to the light. That's the most common mistake. And I see or hear of so many spiritual healings where they are working with this light and send everything off into the light. That is what I call esoteric. It is not true spiritual healing, because these souls cannot go into the light. They are not pure. They have these emotions. They are in the karmic cycle, in the middle of it, probably in the lower emotions anyhow, yeah? So there's no way that they can join the innocent, the animals, the highest beings, the children in the light, yeah? Just to understand that. They need the color, right? So when they are sent into a white light, then where they're actually going is what you see at the lower part. They're white. They are not sent into the truth. They are sent into, they are hiding. That's like the milky white or a cloudy white. That's the color, the spiritual color of hiding. And that's a trap, yeah? So they are not gone. They are still there. No healing has taken place. And when you work with clients or with yourself in a meditation and you see this white, yeah, don't mix it up with white light. It is your subconscious wants to hide, yeah, to not give into the pain and not give into whatever this color is has been created for whatever trauma has been created in this. Yeah. So white is a tricky color. That's what I want to convey. Most of the times you work with clients or yourself and the color white appears, it is hiding. Yeah. Just barely anything else. First thing. Second thing is red is a strong color. It is the strongest color one can have. But it does not mean it is always anger. Sometimes it is just reflecting a strong emotion. But it doesn't need to be anger. It can be desire, any kind of addiction, power, money, sex, whatever, yeah? But it can also just stand for power, for powerfulness in a positive way. So red is a very interesting color that can be a lot of things. Yeah. So when you learn this chart, think of red as just a very strong emotion, the strongest emotion. So when I work with figurines, for example, and somebody is picking the red figurine, then I know already that I have to work with this generation with this representative, or I have to even to start there, because that is where the strongest emotion is. I'm not assuming it's anger, although it often is, but it doesn't have to. It can also be the most loving person in the family with a very strong drive, you know? So that's the red color, the bright red color. Then the next thing I want to point you at is the gray color, the fear of the unknown. When you go with clients in a guided meditation, most of the time, the color gray comes up first because they are in the state of fear of the unknown. That's normal. So you have to go through it. You have to guide your clients through the gray. The gray is not the end of the thing. This is the start of the healing, yeah? And then you have to find one of the colors behind the gray, yeah, if you will, behind the gray. That's where you find the color, okay? Then what else do we have? You will barely ever see gold or silver because your clients are normally not in the state, neither purple or even the light blue up there, because that's normally not the emotions you work with clients with. They're normally having lower vibrating emotions. Yeah. Most of the time you have to do with indigo, pink, green, yellow, violet, red, orange, brown, gray, emerald, green. That's what you get normally. And black. Black can also appear, of course. Yeah. Black is, of course, a dark color, the darkest color there is. And it always, it's a selfish color. It's just the color of selfishness. Now, this is a chart. You don't need to learn it. You just look at it and you use it. In our exercise, you will learn how to use it. You will hear me talking about it and demonstrating it. So it will become, it will become a guide for you, yeah, to go through the worlds of emotion in yourself and in your client. What this chart is not good for is to use it on a daily basis when you're not working with spiritual healing and think you know what state somebody's in. Just because they wear orange doesn't mean that they are not to be trusted. Remember, most monks wear orange in many traditions, and orange is a lovely color in design work. So that is not the way to use this color chart. That you now go around and this person is always in this dark green, so they must have to do something with drugs or something. That's not how we use it. We only use it in spiritual healing. That's all. Yeah, only in spiritual healing. it would be completely inappropriate and unjust to use it in any other way. Yeah. Okay. So now let's talk about the in-between world. I have briefly touched on that. It's a world also called the world of the undead. This is where the attached spirits or possessive energies or curses live. All these energy forms that have detached because they are so strong as an emotion. Yeah. Here are also souls in deep sleep. So when we are sleeping, we often go in the in-between world, sometimes in the astral world. That's where we travel. Remember, the in-between world is part of the astral plane. It is just before, it's kind of close to the astral. It's like a step before the astral plane. People in nighttime sleep often are here in the in-between world because it's so close to our world that it is easy to reach. So it doesn't need much to go there. Yeah. If you have bad dreams, I'm not even talking about nightmares. I'm talking just about bad dreams where you have this, you wake up and you don't really remember what it was, but you have this kind of slight discomfort, yeah, about your night's sleep. I guarantee you've been in the in-between world. Why? Because attachment and addictions keep the people, not you, keep the people, the souls there. They can't move on into the astral world where they belong, to their color, their home. They are caught in between because they have so strong attachments to something earthly, a person or a substance, which is then an addiction, that they are unwilling and unable to leave when they leave their body. And they stay in the in-between world and like to dwell around and sometimes to attach themselves to somebody else, to take a ride, because they don't have a body anymore. And they do not understand that they are dead. In the astral world, you do understand that you used to have a body. You go through memories of your bodily existence on the way to the astral world. You have this life review and all of these things. And you know very well that you don't have a body anymore. They don't. The in-betweeners do not know that. They think they're still alive. They don't understand. If they are not sleeping, they don't understand that they are dead. The spirits or possessive energies that are there, they want to live on through sometimes they want to live on through another body to stay close to where they're attached to. And that is how somebody, takes a ride and attaches themselves to somebody else. And these would be the clients you have. And I can give you many examples from my practice when I have that. They don't rest, they are restless, unless sometimes they are in a comatose sleep in the in-between world. But if they are not, they don't find any rest. And they don't understand what's going on. They have no concept. They still think they have a life in some way, shape, or form. And then we have the plane of light, the true light, where the innocents go and the spirits go without the emotions of the soul. Children are here, of course, advanced beings and animals who have no mental construct and no emotional body as such. Incarnation from the plane of life is optional. So no spirit needs to incarnate, but if a spirit is individualized to a soul who is in astral plane, the spirit is always animating matter, spirit, breath of life, to allow the soul to have another life experience, because the soul wants, the spirit wants to help the soul through all these stages of frequencies of emotions to be eventually free, because the spirit can move on to other realms of existence once the soul is dissolved. That's the freedom of the spirit. That's the freedom of this individualized consciousness. That's what holding the spirit in this structure, if you will. re-entering always once achieved this freeing of the soul. Jiva Mukti is a yoga language. Sanskrit is it called? Jiva Mukti, the freed soul, which is the goal of yoga, if you will, to free your soul. Once this is achieved, re-entering is optional and it is without an emotional body. These are the highly achieved masters that rarely come to earth, that you just sit with, like Ramaha Maharshi comes to mind, who don't speak much, they don't teach much. They just attract people who want to dwell in their energy because they have instant feelings of peace and unconditional love and even enlightenment just in the presence of these masters. And because they come without an emotional body, they also come without a desire. They don't have the desire to teach. They don't have the desire to be a guru. They just happen to be it. Yeah, like the Buddha, if you will, like the story about the Buddha. That's another culture, if you want to look there, how that looked like. The goal is to create new realms of existence. Once the soul is freed from any emotions and dissolved, yeah, then the spirit can go on and create a new realm of existence. That's creation. Creation, remember, takes place on all levels of existence. It never stops. That's always the goal in every life form, is to create. Creating meaning to make something unknown known. Because the potential in the world is the unknown, and the creativity is to find a way to make it known, right? Or let's call it discovery, if you will. So here's a quote from Malcolm Southwood, and one of his best books is also called that, Teach Me How to Love So I Can Hear. Unconditional love, frequency of 500, is the only state from which you can heal yourself and others. There is no other state. Impossible. The higher states, yes, but not the lower ones. Impossible. So every time healing takes place is from this state of love. And why is this so important? Is because unconditional love is for everyone. When we are looking at the family system, everyone has its place. Everyone has the same, from us as a facilitator, the same, deserves the same love, no matter what they have done. It is not a matter of their action. Yeah. So if we cannot, and we are in this state because we are taken into service by the family soul. And the family soul is also not diverting any members into the good ones and the bad ones. They are all part of the family and they need to be seen. So that's our work, to find the members of the family who have been excluded, yeah, by other family members, not by the family soul. The family soul wants to unite them. And we can help when we're in the state of love. And how does it look? There is, so Malcolm has shared in his training how that can look like. He was on a speech. He had a speech about healing, of course. That's what he's been invited to talk about. And he was talking about love and how love can heal and what love is and all of this. And then he looked at his audience and they were all looking at him like this. And he had no idea why they look like this. And so he asked, why are you all looking at this? And then they said, you have just vanished. So he was talking about unconditional love and was so immersed in this frequency that his body has transformed for a few seconds and was not there anymore. It was so high vibrating that it has no density anymore. And that is a recorded event. So, and this is what this love can do, right? It is dissolving even matter. And it's involuntarily. Imagine he would be able to do that deliberately. He never achieved that, to do that deliberately. He was as surprised as everybody else. Yeah. But that is just to make it visual, how this kind of love in the end is dissolving matter and of course also emotion and emotional energy. So I also like to teach you how to love unconditionally, and that starts with you and yourself. To not be in any way, shape, or form dismissive of any part of yourself. Whatever you think is imperfect, whatever you think is not right, start to look at it from another perspective. From the perspective of your spirit with unconditional love. And that's good news is you don't need to be an enlightened master or dissolve your body into the molecules of your body to be able to heal. You will be lifted into the state automatically, and you will work from here, and then you will come back and you will not even remember the difference. This is taken into service by the morphogenetic field. Yeah. So every time you are offering your help as a facilitator or a systemic coach, for example, yeah, you will be taken into this space. And this is why we love to do it, because it is a beautiful state to be in. Going with a spirit and family constellation is the term Bert Hellinger used to describe the new family constellation, the ones that I teach you, because he found out that when he's only looking at the movement of the souls, he's only concerned with what the trauma is about and where it has, put his imprints in the family system. But once we go one step higher and we go with the spirit, now we can apply the healing in a way that we immediately apply that what is needed, what is missing, what wasn't there before. And now it's there because we are allowing it to come. We are allowing it to be visible. And that's going with the spirit and family constellation or the new family constellation. And that can be very short. It can be a 10, 15-minute constellation, no question, with this deep impact. Spiritual healing is not healing a spirit. We are not healing a spirit. There's no way to heal a spirit. A spirit, the true spirit, is always whole. There's nothing to heal. Yeah. The spirit we are talking about that we work with that is attached to a person, we don't heal that spirit. We give them a perspective and a way out and a way home. Yeah, we are not healing that, but we are healing the client who has this energy away and who feels freer. And I can give you another. I have several examples, but one comes to mind that was quite impressive with a boy that I had in my workshop once. Saida, you want to ask something?
So if I'm right, based on what you said earlier on, is that we're using the spirit to heal the soul?
We're using love, unconditional love,
Yeah.
and that is in the realm where the spirit exists. Yeah, because the spirit has no emotion that are negative or in any way that is the soul has the emotions, not the spirit. That's what I want to say.
So the
it
spirit
sets the tone.
Another.
Yeah, it sets the tone. It gives the consciousness. Yeah, that is the consciousness that is guiding us. That's what he wants to say. The consciousness or the spirit is guiding us. A higher self, if you will, is probably the best term. The higher self is guiding you, is guiding the client, is guiding the whole family system. Yeah, that's kind of the idea behind that. So that means in your work you stay clear of thoughts and belief systems. They have no room in facilitating a family constellation, neither expectations or our own emotions. Yeah, and it's not difficult, because you are not showing up as you are here and as a trainee when you facilitate. You're showing up as somebody who's in service of the family system, who's taken by this governing principle, by the spirit as well, and guided. Yeah, and you find yourself in the state of unconditional love. That's beautiful, and nothing to be worried about. You don't need to create that; it will just happen. What you can create, and that is something that you should focus on, is compassionate for all beings in all worlds. Because if you're compassionate for the perpetrator who has murdered and raped hundreds of women, let's say, yeah, not because he has done that, or not because, or despite he has done that, just because he is just an innocent being as everybody else, not special. Yeah. If you have achieved this kind of state, that's compassion for all beings. You can work with everyone. Everyone will come to you from this realm because they feel understood. They don't feel dismissed, because that's the problem, that they are dismissed. Yeah. Remember, only love can heal. I can't emphasize enough on that. Okay. I would like to go with you through the foundations of spiritual healing now, and we will practice that then. So this is just the theory or the information that comes up front, and then we will use it. And of course, you have it on your video recordings. You can always stop it and take screenshots, and you're not missing out on anything. First of all, first rule is always see perfection in yourself and others. Each soul is on its individual journey and perfectly guided by its spirit. Be aware of that. Nobody is there by mistake where they are. There's this beautiful saying, there are no mistakes in the universe, only misunderstanding. That can happen, but no mistakes. To heal yourself and others, you need to see the perfection of creation, not the emotional imperfection of the body or soul. We are not looking at that. When somebody says, oh, something tragic, I cut off all my toes with an axe when I was chopping wood. Yeah? It's not like this, you just say, okay, so there's a soul who has experienced this pain of not having toes and this agony. This is another state that you are in. And you see that that is important for this soul journey to experience that. The healing takes place when the soul child, that's another unrelated fundament of spiritual healing. The healing takes place when the soul child gains back self-respect and self-love, meaning letting go of guilt. Soul child is a traumatized child. And we go in spiritual healing to that traumatized child in this lifetime, in another lifetime, in the family system, to this traumatized child and take it out where it has been traumatized into the now. Yeah. And give it back self-respect and self-love. That is what in the adult client is still missing. It's left behind in the trauma, if you will, right? So we take it out, and that also, remember, we always look for guilt and shame. That's why the soul is stuck there, because this traumatized child has been adopted the feeling of either guilt or shame. You need to take the time away in spiritual healing and bring the problem into the now. We always use present tense. We never use past tense. We go with our client in a guided meditation, which I will show you in a regression, to the problem as if it would be now and not in the past. Yeah, the healing takes place on a higher level than where the problem has been created, obviously. You cannot heal a problem with a problem, right? You need to go to a higher level. That would be the spiritual level, to look at the emotional problem, yeah, and to be able to apply unconditional love here. I don't know whether you ever saw this video that was on YouTube going around a few years ago from this 3 monks that was in India, I think. three monks. They actually didn't look like monks. They looked like normal people. Three enlightened being, or however you want to call it. They have been invited for an experiment. So there was a doctor's or hospital room with a woman who had internal cancer. I think it was pancreas or stomach or something. Quite advanced, quite a big lump of cancer. And she was under an ultrasound with her doctors around, ultrasound. And then these three, let's call them monks, have been invited to chant mantras there. And they were all about unconditional love, of course, completely acceptance and unconditional love. And they were chanting, and it didn't take long. The video was not long, it was probably 10 minutes. And on the ultrasound, the tumor shrunk while they were chanting in front of everybody's eyes. And they shrunk and it shrunk and it shrunk to basically going away. Yeah. This is how the body vibration reacts to such a high frequency once applied. And that is what we do as well. We are creating this high frequency with our compassion to all in this family system without any judgmental thought about them or any emotion that is reassembling any of the lower vibration or lower than love. And that's it. And everything will fall into place. This is why I say our work is really not difficult. We just need to put ourselves in this state, yeah, which is also not difficult because it is just letting go of too much tension, if you will, and trusting the process. And knowing your stuff, of course, in the background. You're having your tools together. So you're not tapping in the dark. Yeah, you know how to heal in a certain circumstance. So the illness in the physical body is residing on Earth, of course, we know that, yeah? Just an expression of what the trauma is, the fear and guilt on the emotion and the emotional body from the astral world, yeah? And the healing takes place from the world of light on high vibration. That's where the healing takes place. And we are all of that because we are composed of all three parts, spirit, soul, and body, as long as we live. Yeah. So we all can do it. We all have access to it. Nobody needs to be special to do that. We talked about empaths, intuitives, and psychics a lot, and you now may probably get a picture why this is problematic in our line of work. The empaths are feeling an emotion of somebody else, so they cannot help, right? Obviously, they cannot heal it. The intuitives don't know where they are at, what they are seeing. Yeah, so they cannot apply the necessary structure to allow the missing link to put into the right place so the love can flow again. And the psychics can only access the in-between world. That's their superpower. That's all they have. They only can communicate with the in-betweeners. That's all. So it's a very narrow spectrum, and that's not healing. Some people feel a relief if they can talk to deceased, of course, because they are emotional, and the deceased are emotional. But it's not spiritual healing, right? Understood? It's just enabling a communication between two emotional bodies, souls. That's it. But the desire, the emotion, whatever is behind it is not healed. It's just worked with. And that's what psychics do. And that's all they do. That's their power. That's it. Spiritual healing is not that. When we use spiritual healing in a family constellation, we are healing, we are healing the underlying emotional trauma that has caused the problem, either in the generation we are working with or in 7 generations back. Yeah, that's our work. We can also heal independently from the family system, especially in a one-on-one situation, but often it does happen in a family constellation as well, in a workshop. We can also heal a separate emotion, sending an emotion into the color. We will practice that. Yeah. We can also heal emotional illness. Yeah. If we can get hold of the underlying emotion with the same system, send it away. And in a family constellation, we use spiritual healing to release a trauma, either an own trauma of the client, mainly a childhood trauma, or a trauma in the family system, back 7 generations. Or we are doing what we call to free souls. That are the dead, the representatives that are lying on the floor representing dead persons that have their eyes open. They are caught in the in-between world. We can heal them. We can move them on from the in-between world where they are caught into their color in the astral world. We can also, in a family constellation, separate attached spirits. We do that also in entanglements if that is going that far, but we can actually do and perform spiritual healing to separate an attached spirit with the help of representatives in a family constellation workshop. And we can also do the same with the help of representatives to remove possessive energies. That is the release of attached emotion. So I can give you an example for the family constellation where I have helped the client to separate an attached spirit. There was the mother who came to me in the workshop with a problem for her child. I think it was 5, 6, 7 years old, about that. And it was also her own problem because she reported that her child, when the boy woke up in the morning, he was so rude to her that he uses word, and he was so abusive with her that she was always crying in the morning. Yeah. And then after a while, he became his normal self. And by the time it was breakfast, he was, his usual nice self. So she found that and he didn't sleep well neither. So she had her nightmares and all of this. So she found that very concerning. She was suffering under the situation because it impacted the whole family. Now I knew, of course, when she was talking, I had immediately the picture that, of course, he might have an attached spirit, because they like to take over in the night. Remember, when we leave our body, we go astral traveling, we dwell somewhere, then the attached spirit can take the place of the soul who's traveling and more take over. So they would have nightmares or don't sleep well. And in the morning when they wake up, there would be kind of this transition from the attached spirit going to sleep and from the soul of the child coming back and being in the body. So that's a typical time frame when you can tell somebody has caught a spirit. So that's one thing. Then, of course, I asked the client, because I know what to inquire for. I asked the client, since when is it? So she said, since 2 years or 3 years, what she said. And then I said, what happened 3.5 years ago? You always have to go a little bit further back. And then she said, we were on holidays. And I said, what happened on these holidays? And then she thought, and then she said, oh, he was actually in the hospital. I asked, why was he in the hospital? So, because he fell, he had an accident, and he hit his head, and he had an open wound on his head. Then he had to go to the hospital. And then I know, because I know that you can catch an attached spirit when your energy shield is down, and that is mainly then down when you have an accident, when your body is in shock, right? Especially a head injury is very common to catch. So I asked, where was that? Because the attached spirit cannot go anywhere. It needs to be right there where it happens. So it's normally a busy place, right? Where people die. And then she said it was in a mall somewhere in Australia, a very busy mall. So all these pieces, and she had no idea why I asked her all this question, were obviously pointing that this boy had somebody who was stuck in the in-between world because of addiction and attachment and a shopping mall, right? It's typical for people who are attached and addicted. They love shopping malls. Somebody who died there with this kind of desire to whatever, to drink or to shop or to whatever kind of strong desire that is, has caught a ride with this poor little boy who was happened to have an injury, a head injury right there where he was dwelling, right? So I knew that, nobody else in the room knew that. None of the participants, not the client, the mother, nobody. So I asked her to choose a representative for her boy, a second one, and the third one. And I didn't say to anybody what they were for. I knew the second one was the attached spirit and the third one was the astral world where they belong. So the boy was very distressed. The representative of the boy was looking away. He was sad. He was very uncomfortable, but didn't know why, just uncomfortable and slightly sad. And the representative that I chose for the possessive spirit was literally clinging to him on his shoulder. He was literally behind his shoulder, but always behind the shoulder. So wherever the boy turned, he couldn't see it, right? So always behind the shoulder. This was typical representation of an attached spirit. And then the third person who was representing the world of the color, the astral world where the spirit belongs to. You must think of the spirit as if somebody who has missed their train. They have missed their train. Yeah. So they were dwelling there in the in-between where don't know that where they belong and just wanting a ride with somebody because they think that is the way they can still feel the addiction or their whatever it was, yeah, whatever what was that kept them in the in-between world. So it was a long process in this family constellation to convince the representative of the attached spirit to let go of the boy. And how do we do that? How did I do that? I was full of compassion to the spirit, understanding the situation and explaining to them that they missed their train. And I can show them a new train, how to go home. That's what you do. Yeah. You cannot tell them to leave. You cannot tell them that they are bad and they are causing the boy trouble. That's not working. Only with love and compassion works. So it was a long and a lot of conviction necessary, and then slowly has this representative looked over to the color, his home, and slowly turned away from the boy. And I remember on the belly, actually crawling with their arms very slowly forward towards the color, the third representative, always guided by me, encouraging him to go there because that's their home. That's where they belong. That's what he wants to be. Now he knows, knowing that he's dead, that he can't stay in the earthly world because you know of the concept and the soul can't stay here without a body. So you were just saying everything that you know of and explaining that to him as well, so he can make a decision. Because as always in a family constellation, we are not making anybody to do anything. We want them to fail their own decision. And that's it. That's the healing point. They need to make better decisions. So, long story short, he managed to go there. He managed to go in the arms of the third representative, and then they both left the room physically. So they were out of the door, right? Voluntarily, not because I asked them to, voluntarily. What happened with the representative of the boy? He felt a little bit awkward and a little bit lost because he was so used and accustomed to this having the spirit, but he also felt a lot lighter and a lot happier. So that's when the constellation was finished. A few days later, I haven't heard from her, although I know the mother, an acquaintance of mine, but I haven't heard anything from her. A friend of us, a mutual friend of us, met with me. And she said to me, oh, I ran into her the other day and I asked her about her son, because that was a common problem. She knew about that, of course, right? And she said, oh, my son is lovely. He wakes up in the morning with a smile and mommy, I love you. And everything was completely back to normal, right? And so I said, oh, that's nice that I hear that from a third person, because he would never tell me, because as always on a healing of this level, they don't connect the dots. That is the interesting fact. They do not remember that was the family constellation about. It is just as in the moment this has been healed, it is as if it was always like this. You know, it's normal. And that's what I would like also you to know. This, the reward you get from this work is not from the feedback of your client, because the deepest healing is taking place and you will never hear of them. Yeah, just be aware of that. You cannot judge your work by the feedback or the not existing feedback of a client. But by the grace and by the magic of life, the word will find you. You will know, you will get somehow feedback that you will understand that this all works. Yeah. And so you're not fishing in the dark here. So that was one, and that was the first family constellation setup I had when I actually had released the spirit. That was the first one. It happened after that a few times. Before that, I have only done that in one-on-one session. So just so you have a picture, and it does happen more often than you think of. Yeah. And what I want to integrate that in our course is because it is present and it does happen. And if you know how to deal with it, why wouldn't you, right? Why would you say, oh, I don't know what to do here. You sit back, I take somebody else. You want to help, right? And you will also get the clients who need your help because you know how to deal with them. So it makes your work a lot more interesting. And not only one side of the story. The same process that I just explained with the attached spirit is for possessive energies. It's just much easier and it doesn't take so long because it's not a spirit, like the whole entity. Spirit is the wrong word. It's a soul form, of course, with personality and everything. In a possessive energy, it's just one emotion that you catch in a bus or in the swim hall or wherever public places you are, and you will have your guards down for a split second. That can happen. Yeah. But you can also release it much easier. And there's a good exercise to release. I think we did that before, did we? To release emotions, that's practically the same exercise. You release, you can contemplate in the evening about what strong emotions you have felt at that day. Maybe unconsciously even or subconsciously, you bring it up into your consciousness, and then you are visualizing the corresponding color, and then you are seeing the color as a shape somewhere close by, and then you send off this energy, this emotion into the color, right? And this is how you can release any kind of negative emotion that you have caught over the course of the day. If this happens, and it will happen less and less and less and less. Yeah. And then, like in the constellation, you need to watch how this color is combining with the shape in the same color. So how the emotion is in the astral world that's represented by this shape and color, and how they go away. So you see them leaving. That's important in what we do. That's like the two representatives left the room out of the door. That was an important step for the client to heal, yeah, to watch that. And that's for you the same. When you release negative emotions from your day, you want to see it dissolving. Otherwise, it won't be away. It won't be really gone. Yeah, it's just halfway. So, emotional healing is important to raise the frequency so you can heal, right? We went through that now all evening. There is such a phenomenon as addicted to emotion. Some people are literally addicted to a certain emotion. They have a certain sadness or grieving or anger or any kind of these emotions that they are really, they don't know why, but they always create circumstances where they have the same emotion all over again and over again and over again, all the time. And that's also a form of addiction. Same with attachment to things, people, groups, group experience. All of this needs emotional healing, if you will. Yeah. How we heal emotions is exactly what I explained just before. We find the color and send it up there. Positive thinking doesn't work, right? So that just because we said a thought, an emotion has always a corresponding thought that comes first, which is true. You might now think, oh, we just changed the thought and then we have the positive emotion, right? That doesn't work. That's what we know as positive thinking. Positive thinking doesn't help because the positive thinking is a mind activity that wants to override a negative thought that the same mind has attracted. That means as long as somebody needs to think positive, there's this negative thought always there, which needs to be translated into positive thinking. So the negative thought is there, and so the emotion. It's not gone. It's there. It's not transformed. It's just there. Doesn't work. It costs a lot of energy, a lot of stress, and will not heal. However, you can create positive thoughts, meaning you can transform a negative thought into a positive thought through acknowledging what is and finding compassion. Yeah. This is the true transformation, and this is also how to heal it. How to heal it so it is gone. That's what healing is. It's gone. It's as if it was never there. That's what you want. Overcoming thought pattern and emotion is paramount for spiritual growth, right? And we know that, and that's what we want to do. So we do it with us first, and then we can help our clients. I just gave you a list of emotional illnesses. That is all due to Malcolm Southwood, and you find it in one of his books. I think especially in the one, You and Your Mobile Home, I believe is a lot about emotional illnesses. Just to give you an idea, when we are healing an emotion, what kind of physical ailment also can go with it. Yeah, phobias, which is an irrational fear about something that should cause no fear, is always due to a trauma, always due to an emotional illness. Yeah? So if we find that, the phobia will go. Alzheimer's condition is also something either in this lifetime, in a past lifetime, or in the family system with an attachment that is causing this condition. This not being able to remember something that has recently happened. Chronic fatigue syndrome, very known, and MS, multiple sclerosis as well. The self-destructing, also this autoimmune illnesses, they are all the self-destructing illnesses. They are all due to an emotion that vibrates very low, mainly guilt and shame, as low as it gets. Yeah. Kidney disorders or Parkinson's disease as well. And also arthritis. Arthritis can most likely has its grounds in a sort of a emotional trauma that has been caught in childhood or in the family system. Infertility, we work with that a lot, is also very rarely a true physical problem. And even if it is presenting itself as a physical problem, it can be healed with the underlying emotional cause that has caused it. So we talk about attached spirit. I have talked about that already, and I gave you the example. So I'm just going through the slide quickly so you have it on the video recording. These are entities, meaning an emotional body from the in-between world, or it can be just one emotion, which we call possessive energies. It always needs a weak host and a close contact, both. It can go only both. Remember, the child was a weak host. Children are always weak, and it had a brain injury, a head injury. So the guards were completely open. That is a weak host. And the close contact is the spirit was right there, died there. Right? Maybe 100 years ago, or 50 years, or just 10 years ago on a heart attack, or who knows? Yeah. So it is right there. Spirits cannot attached spirit cannot just wander around. They don't have legs to move around, or so they are where they are, and that's why they love to attach themselves to living human beings, because now they can walk around, right? And that's what they want, because they don't want to be dead and immobile. So you need both a weak host and a close contact, yeah, or you need a strong attachment, to something, so same attachment. So if somebody is attached to its partner, for example, think of a couple who has spent all the entire life together, and now one passes away before the other, say with 80 or something, or 90 even. They don't know any other life without the other. If they don't have prepared for their passing, if they were scared to leave their loved one behind, they would get stuck in the in-between world, and they would attach themselves to somebody from the family who is close to the partner, so they can stay there. A child, a grandchild, a neighbor, or somebody, who can keep them in the same vicinity as the person they're attached to. Loving compassion towards all beings is here key. This is the position you find yourself in if you want to help releasing these kinds of burdens from the client. Remember, big trap to fall into. Don't send them into the light. They only hide in the white. They don't go. Find the color. And you can ask them, like the representative, I ask, of course, in my example from my workshop, I asked the representative for the attached spirit, what color do you see? Yeah. And they said a color. And it was the same color that the third representative, the representative for the astral world, saw. So they belong together. Find the emotion or the color they have become, and then release. Then you go through the releasing progress that I just briefly touched on, how to release them into their color, and we will have a little demonstration. I show you that. Yeah, that's similar to a regression we do. Oh, actually, we go in part 3 through it, because that's where we go through regression. Yeah. So that's the end of me talking. I have a dry mouth already. I'm talking too much today, I think. And you're too much listening. So now I would like you to go in a little exercise in a group of 2, and that is healing an emotion. Or alternatively, you can also release souls from the in-between world. I talk you through both. You can decide that in your group what you do, and you swap, of course. So each of you is doing it. Yeah. So you go in groups of 2. You find an emotion to work with. You don't need to take a long meditation to do that. You can just, it's an exercise. You ask your partner, what emotion you want to release. Yeah, is that emotion you catch in the day, the week, anything that you want to release that you don't like to carry around. Then you ask what color they see. Don't forget that. Keep your spiritual color chart there. You ask what color do they see, or you suggest a color due to your chart. Yeah, if they say, oh, I got so mad today at somebody, then you say, okay, we choose the color red. Yeah, you could do that. And then you ask your client to visualize an object that is red. It could be a door, it could be a cloud, it could be a balloon, it could be absolutely anything. Yeah, they should visualize an object in this color. And then you would ask the client to exhale and send this emotion of anger, yeah, with the color red into this object and watch it to go there. It's a visualization, yeah? They can close their eyes, watch it to go there. And once they confirm to you that they have followed it and it has been merged with this object, then you ask your client to see this object completely dissolving. And that's it. Yeah, that's healing in emotion. You can do the same if you have no emotion. You can do the same with an in-between soul. You can visualize a battlefield. You can visualize an area where there was an act of terror, where many people died. Every time when there's or a tsunami or an earthquake or wherever, yeah, whatever, in real life, like what really has happened, and you visualize to go there and release everyone who you visualize is lying down with their eyes open. You tap them on the shoulder, yeah, ask them what color they see, or you see a color for them, often you do. And then you have the same visualization with an object and a color, and that's where you send them to, so they can go home, waking up from the in-between world, finding their home in the astral world. That's what you do. And you can just playfully do that. You know, you decide either or. It doesn't need to be perfect. I don't want you to perform a healing session here with your partner. It's just for you to start to work with these tools I give you. Yeah? Okay, questions? Good, let's do it. And then we come back and then we share. We are a little bit over. Sorry for 2 minutes, 2 o'clock. But that will be fun, the exercise. So you might perk up again. Okay, so let's do the breakout rooms. And everyone has, it's really just make it brief, 4 minutes. And then I send you a message to swap, yeah? What? Let me take part. And what was so funny? You want
She
to share?
was when she was doing her turn to release the emotion, and I could see the green box, and then I asked her, was it like a bird house or something? Because here we have bird houses made of wood, and she was like, yeah, it was like a rectangular box. Is it rectangular or square? Because I could see it when she was releasing her emotions.
Very good. Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. So I can see that you are very well visualizing that.
Yeah, and when she said that she saw green first color, for me, it's also first color I saw was green. I was like, okay, green, that's weird.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, very good connection. So, Suman, we miss Navjoti, eh? She just fell out of
Yeah,
the
I don't know
ether.
where she went. She
But
got
did you
lost.
finish with her? Did you finish the
We did.
exercise with?
We did finish, yeah.
Well, okay. So Heba has already shared. Oh, she's coming back. So obviously that worked well for you. How was about you, Saida?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was interesting kind of doing the process or guiding Heba was easier. But then for me, when I was the client, I just found it really hard to like actually let the emotion come out of me,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, which feels really silly, but it was good to experience because it felt
Mhm.
hard,
Mhm.
you know.
It is not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It is much lighter if you can do this exercise without somebody else, for yourself, with this visualization every night before you go to bed, and it gets easier and easier. And it takes a few under a minute to clear all this emotion we catch over the day. And yeah, and good. Thank you
you.
for the feedback. And Suman, how was yours?
I had a much easier time being the client. It was very difficult for me to be the facilitator. I think I don't know if it's sleep deprivation or if it's just a hard time concentrating on it, but like mine was anger. So it was like easy for me to just be with that and release it. So Navjyoti did a good job facilitating that for me.
Right. And what was the problem when you was facilitating?
I think I was having a difficult time connecting
Mm-hmm.
and being present.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of took away from the experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear Navjyoti. How did you experience it?
Alright, yeah, it was very nice. Yeah, so when I facilitated for women with time, she could visualize quite clearly. So it was anger, and we weren't very sure if we should refer to the chart when the emotion is mentioned, or if the client mentions the color themselves. And so,
You
so
can
we
do both.
so
If the client
can
has
do
a
both.
color, great, just
Yeah.
take it. Doesn't need to be red just because it's anger, can be any other. And if the client can't see a color, then you refer to the chart.
So no. So does the client mention an emotion and then they give a corresponding color? Or do
Either
they
or,
just give a color?
either or.
Okay.
They might say, I see a color, and then you would kind of look at the chart and ask if this is this emotion.
Yeah.
Or they say, I feel this emotion, and they don't have a color, then you would suggest a color, or they feel both. They say, I feel anger, and I see the color red or
Yes.
another color.
So that's what happened. You're right. So she said anger, and then I asked for a color, and she said brown. Now, brown was not on the chart.
Brown is on the chart. It's a color of
It's,
control.
control. Oh, I don't know. I couldn't spot it. So then I was thrown off a bit, and then I said, okay, let's, since it's anger, let's go with red. And then we went with red, and she visualized quite swiftly, and it was done.
Right.
Yeah, and when I was being facilitated, yeah, she followed the same steps. So yeah, we could we could allow the color to merge into a screen, and then the screen was made to
Wonderful.
dissipate and crumble and disappear. So it was good.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
wonderful. So that was already your first working with the spiritual healing. So, we take one step at a time, not jump to any further more difficult task. I'll leave you with this for today. It was a long 15 minutes over, long 3 and 15 minutes, 3 hours, 15 minutes. And I wish you either good night or good day, wherever you are. And I'll see you tomorrow. Questions
Good
we
night.
do at the morning, at the beginning of the
Seatbelts
next
on.
part.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. See ya. Bye.